All right, welcome. If you're a clinic owner, you're basically living in two different worlds at once, right? On one hand, you've got the steady, reliable services that are the bedrock of your practice. And on the other, you have these exciting new treatments that could be your future. So how do you make sure you get paid for both? Well, in this explainer, we're going to give you the playbook for mastering billing for both the foundation and the frontier of medicine. So this really is the million-dollar question, isn't it? I mean, you got into this to be a doctor, but you're also running a business. Bringing in innovative new therapies is amazing for your patients, but if your billing department isn't ready for it, it can be a total disaster for your bottom line. So let's break down how to get this right. To really get a handle on this, we're going to look at two totally different services side by side. First, you've got medical nutrition therapy, or MNT. Let's call this the foundation. It's been around, the rules are super clear, and getting paid is, a pretty predictable process. Then, on the other side, you have FMT, fecal microbiota transplant. This is the frontier, a frankly incredible new therapy where the billing rules are literally shifting under your feet. Understanding how to handle both is absolutely key to a healthy practice. Okay, so let's start on solid ground with medical nutrition therapy. For a lot of clinics, this is a core service, and getting the billing right is just fundamental. The good news? It all boils down to knowing just two little codes. First step, CPT code 97802. And the key word here, the only word you really need to remember, is first. This code is only for that initial one-on-one face-to-face assessment. It's when you're doing the deep dive, gathering history, and building that first plan. You use it once and only once when you start care with a new MNT patient. Okay, so now let's talk about its partner, 9703. This code is your MNT workhorse. It's for every single follow-up visit after that initial one. Checking on progress, tweaking the plan, more education, all of that falls under 9703. Honestly, the single biggest, most common mistake we see is practices getting these two mixed up. It's an instant denial. Okay, so what are we actually talking about in terms of dollars and cents? This chart gives you the national Medicare rates for one 15-minute unit, so about $37 for the initial visit and a little under $32 for the follow-ups. But, and this is so important, these are just baseline numbers, a ballpark. Your actual reimbursement is going to vary by payer and by where you're located. The big takeaway here, you have to verify these rates with your specific payers. Don't ever assume. Now, the actual process is pretty simple. Step one, and I'm going to say this a lot, is verify coverage before that patient even walks in the door. Then you use the standard CMS 1500 form. But the real meat is in steps 3 and 4. You have to document your time perfectly to justify how many 15-minute units you're billing, and you have to link it to the right ICD-10 code to prove it was medically necessary. This slide is basically a checklist of how not to lose money on MNT. We've talked about most of these, using the wrong code, sloppy time tracking, not checking coverage. But look at that last one. That's a classic gotcha. For your Medicare patients, you usually can't bill MNT and diabetes self-management training on the same day. Knowing little payer-specific rules like that is what separates a paid claim from a denied one. All right, our foundation's secure. Now let's get a little more adventurous and head out to the frontier. Fecal microbiota transplant is a total game changer, but its billing is the perfect example of just how fast and wild things can get when brand new tech hits the market. Yeah, before we dive into the nitty-gritty of codes, let's just take a second to appreciate how cool this is. We're talking about a therapy that uses the gut microbiome to fight recurrent C. diff infections, which can be an absolutely devastating condition. It's a perfect example of a new service your clinic might be excited to offer, but it definitely comes with some brand new billing headaches. Okay, now this is where it gets interesting. Just look at this timeline and how fast the ground shifts. Before 2023, things were simple. You used one general code, G0455. But then, the FDA approves a specific product, Rebiota. That right there, an FDA approval of a product, that should set off alarm bells for your billing department. It's a huge signal that a code change is coming. And yep, sure enough, by July of 2023, the rules do a complete 180. The old code is out and a new, mandatory 2-code combo is in. If your staff wasn't paying attention, bam, all your claims start getting rejected, practically overnight. And hey, don't just take my word for it. Look at this. This is a direct quote from a Medicare contractor. Failure to bill will result in a claim rejection. Just let that sink in. Read that word in carefully. It doesn't say might be denied. It doesn't say we'll take a look. It says will result in a claim rejection. That is a hard no, it's a brick wall. On the frontier, the rules are not suggestions, they're absolutes. And that's really the big lesson out here on the frontier. The little details, they're not little. They're everything. You just can't rely on what you were doing 6 months ago. For these new technologies, paying obsessive, up-to-the-minute attention to detail is the only way you're going to get paid. Okay, so we've looked at the steady, predictable world and the wild, unpredictable one. So how do you actually build a billing strategy in your practice that can handle both? Well, that's what this is all about, putting together a unified playbook that works for everything. Think of this table as your quick and dirty cheat sheet for payers. For your commercial plans, the rule is there are no rules. It's super variable. You have to check every single time. For Medicare, as we saw, it's all about those product-specific codes now and knowing what they won't pay for separately. And with Medicaid, just think 2 words, prior authorization. It's all about state rules and getting that pre-approval. All right, this is it. This is your universal playbook, the 5 rules that apply to everything, from the most basic service to the most cutting-edge procedure. 1, verify everything, every patient, every time. 2, document like you're going to be audited tomorrow. 3, become a master of prior authorization. 4, have someone on your team whose job it is to stay on top of code changes. And 5, make it easy for your staff to win. Create simple checklists that take the guesswork out of the process. This protects your revenue, plain and simple. So that leaves us with one last question, and this is the one I want you to take back to your team meeting. Look at your billing processes. Are they built just for the stability of the foundation, or are they agile enough for the chaos of the frontier? Building a system that can master both isn't just about getting paid today, it's about making sure your clinic is built to last, ready for whatever comes next. Thanks for tuning in.